I'm joined by Alistair Campbell, Tony Blair's former press chief, worked as press secretary, of course, and director of comms from 97 to 2003. Alistair, thanks for talking with Reuters. I want to talk about how well you think the Europe message is being communicated now by the centre, or the lack of a centre, let's face it.
Well, it depends what you think the Europe message is. I think that the Eurozone crisis has gone on and on and on, in part because Europe's leaders keep saying this is the point at which we have put together the plan to resolve the crisis, and then it seems like, well, no, actually we haven't. And I think maybe that's because there hasn't really been a levelling right across Europe about the scale of the crisis and the kind of things that may need to be done right across Europe. And I think that government by government, there's also this tendency for the blame game to be played. So people are constantly looking at the Germans to sort it out, and the Germans are looking outwards and saying, well, why can't you lot sort out your own problems? And it's just become a little bit of a mess. And of course, when economics is weak and when politics are weak, and the two come together, then there is a sense that you don't necessarily have the leadership to pull it through.
But how confident are you that we can ever have one strategy and a strategy that can be successfully executed given the disparate parts of this union, given the lack of a central PR body, for example?
Well, I really don't think it's just about PR. This is about the reality, and it's about the DNA of the whole project. If you go back to I can remember when we were in government and Tony Blair had the whole rotating presidency at the time the ECB was set up, and so much of that discussion, whilst the presentation was all about it was going to be independent and devoid of politics, and so much of the establishment of that was political. So much of the establishment of the euro was political. I think whilst it's possible to be sympathetic that Angela Merkel seems to have so much responsibility at the moment, the reality is that the Germans knew what they were doing in getting Spain and Portugal.
Do they have a clear strategy now, though, in your view, Germany? A clear enough strategy?
I think they have a strategy of sorts, but they keep having to adapt it according to changing reality, which in truth they could probably have predicted. So I think part of the strategy of all of them, part of the objective of all of them, is to signal that they think things are coming under control. Every time that they signal that and it doesn't come properly under control, then I think they undermine their credibility further.
Specifically UK, the numbers look pretty bad. Targets are not being met. The IMF is slashing growth outlooks left, right and centre. How, and maybe spin's the wrong word, but how do you spin numbers like that?
Well, you can't. And the fact is, I think that part of the British government's problem is that they really do play the blame game the whole time. I mean, they're still going on about it's all about, quotes, the mess we inherited.
Sure. Which is in part true.
Well, everybody at that time in the global economy had a difficult situation, but in Osborne in particular, in constantly trying to politicise it in the way that he does, I think makes a rod for his own back. He keeps setting what appear to be strategies to meet an objective. Every time the objective isn't met, and he's missed every single forecast, he's missed every single target that he's set himself, he undermines his credibility further. And I think that the extent to which they talk about Europe like it's nothing to do with them, when we are meant to be big and leading players within the European Union, part of Europe, I think again is just a resignation of their responsibility to try to do more to sort it out.
I want to quickly get your thoughts to finish out with on bank strategy and bank communication, or lack of it. Clearly it's been very, very poor. Are you confident it will improve and they'll sort this out?
No, because I don't see any signs of that happening. I think that what happened when the banking crisis struck was that the British banks sort of looked around and saw that Fred Goodwin was taking all the heat, and they sort of, apart from Goodwin's own bank, sort of almost breathed a sigh of relief and thought that's an excuse to keep our heads down. And that was never going to be enough. And I've never understood why the banks can't put together a strategy that is based around the notion, the acceptance that they're part of the problem, but then an explanation as to where they're part of the solution.
Fire all the PR and comms people for the banks right now? They're just not doing the right job?
No, look, I don't know them well enough to say whether that's the right thing to do or not. In the end, these things have to come from the people at the top of the organisations, and both individually and collectively, I'd say that the bank's communication strategy has been poor. And every time I go through an airport, or I pick up a business magazine and I work out how much the banks spend on advertising and communications and marketing, they ought to just sit down and do a cost-benefit analysis of the money they're spending on it, and then maybe think, do you know what we actually need is less of the glossy advertising and more a strategy for explanation as to what we do and the good that we have to do for the economy, and an understanding that we may be part of the problem, but we have to be part of the solution.
Okay, Alistair, thanks a lot. Alistair Campbell, Tony Blair's former comms chief. That's it from me. I'm Axel Threlfall. This is Reuters.